Hey guys, I hope you're doing well today. So today is the day we start in on Romeo and Juliet. So far you should have read Act 1, Scene 1, and I'm just going to try recording like this where I'll give you different videos for each scene so that you guys can either read through as a class or on your own each of the scenes. And then once you're done, you'll just pause really quickly, watch these videos. Some will be longer than others, and then I'll just go over kind of what happened in the scene and kind of touch base on some of the stuff I wanted you guys to know about. So for this first one, Act 1, Scene 1, you're jumping into the play for the first time. Just know that the language is really confusing and hard to get through at first, but once you get the hang of it and kind of understand when people are making jokes or they have a way of talking that can be very confusing. But there come points too where they actually talk about things happening. So I'll try to point to that as well. So hopefully at this point you have read this section as a class together. So you've been exposed to it once before. If you didn't understand what was going on, that's completely fine. I'm going to go through it now. But before I do that, I want to give you just a little bit of background into Romeo and Juliet here. I know that's what you've been doing for the last couple days here, but there are just a couple things. One of the first ones is that when Shakespeare wrote this play, he did not make up the story. So he nailed down a lot of the specifics and stuff that happens. But the idea of two young people loving each other from opposite backgrounds where their families hate each other and it ends tragically, that's a story that was around long before Shakespeare came around. So a lot of his contribution to this is the way that he writes. And while it might be confusing to you guys, there are points where you might pick up on some of how well he does it. But a lot of it is very poetic in nature. He's trying to make it seem, he plays around with words a lot. So there are a lot of puns, there are a lot of kind of word plays and stuff. So if you're ever reading and you're just thinking, I have literally no idea what's going on, I know it's going to be all the time, but if you're ever reading and you're trying really hard and you just have no clue what they're saying, very likely it means that they're doing some puns. They're kind of playing with words. So that's something that happens frequently, and it actually happens right at the very beginning of the play, which doesn't help you guys to understand it. But once you get the hang of it, you should be able to tell, okay, I can kind of skip over this because it seems like they're just joking around. So, with that being said, Shakespeare, like I said, did not come up with the story. So he worked through it and kind of made it his own version. But that Romeo and Juliet story had been around for a long time. He also sets it in a place called Verona. Now, Shakespeare lived in London, England, as you guys know by now. But Verona was in Italy, which was really far away. And this was at a time when people didn't have ways of getting around easily. You know, they didn't have cars, they didn't have planes. Most of them, if you wanted to get from one place to another, you had to ride a horse, and horses were really expensive. Other than that, you were just walking, and that could take a really long time. So typically you were born in one spot, you were born in the same spot your parents were, you lived your entire life there, and you died there. And maybe you went in a really small circle, but you didn't travel much outside of that. So Shakespeare setting this in Italy, it was really exotic. It was somewhere different. And that allowed people to believe that there could be so much violence and there could be so much love and lust and all that stuff because of where it was set. So Shakespeare was trying to create kind of an escape from reality. Let's see here. The only other thing before we start, I wanted to actually show you a picture of Verona. This is modern day Verona, Italy. Hopefully you guys can see that. It is very beautiful. As you can see, all this architecture. Um, like I said, it is modern day, so you can see the roads and the cars. Obviously, that's not going to be there back when he would have said it. But even just the way that the buildings are set up, it's very beautiful. They're also very crowded closely together. So just imagine instead of streets with cars, they would be paved walking streets. And the buildings might even be even closer together than they are right now. So this is kind of where it is. There's also a huge canal right down the middle of it. All right, that is it for Verona. I just wanted to give you guys kind of a visual there. I'm going to jump into the actual play itself. So if you guys haven't yet, go ahead and open in your books. This is page 505. I should also have a PDF included It should be sectioned out. I don't know if I'm going to have a link for that yet or if I'm going to include each section as you go along, but you should be able to find it. But in your books is going to be the easiest way to go along. So page 505, the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. Now the page doesn't. There we go. All right, so the characters are all listed here. If you guys want to, you can read through this. I have always found that character pages can be really confusing, especially in a play like this before you know what's going on. So what I'm going to do as we go through the play is keep track of all the characters in this document right here. I am also going to share this with you guys so that you can have access to it. And then as it's updated, you can kind of look back and forth and see what this is all about. So some of these on here, you're going to notice are going to fill up really quickly, the Montague and the Capulet ones. Royalty and especially the church, there aren't going to be as many people for it. But this will help you keep track of who's in what house and kind of where their allegiances lie. So we'll get to that a little bit more in just a second. I'm also, as we go through, going to be keeping track with notes. Both of these things, the character sheet and the notes, are something I would typically do on the board and leave up the entire time so you guys could look at them. But since we don't have that ability right now, I'm just going to keep track of it in this document right here. And then you guys will be able to go back through and look at it as the play goes on. These are just going to be kind of major events that happen in the play so that you can keep track of what's going on, even if you have no clue while you're reading. And that's totally fine. As you're reading too, I would encourage you to keep your own set of notes. Try to translate it into your own words, even if it's something as simple as fighting here or something like that. Romeo and Juliet kissed for the first time. Stuff like that, so that you yourself can keep track of it. The way this is going to work is you guys are going to go through, and once we're done with each act, there's going to be a study guide and there's going to be a quiz. You will not be able to use the study guide on the quiz, but trust me, you should have enough practice with it that you should do fairly well on the quizzes themselves. We'll talk about it in class. It'll be up here on the notes page. And then also you will be able to study several times when you go through that study guide at the end. All right, I know that's a lot, just trying to front load it. Not every video is going to start this long. So, characters in the play, like I said, we're going to skip over real quick. Jump right into the prologue here. This one I am going to read all the way through, just to go through what the expectation was. So, let's say you're watching the play, you're at the Globe Theater back in the day, you're looking around, all of a sudden about 8 to 10 people come out on the stage, they all stand in a group and they just recite this. So the whole point of the prologue here is to give the audience an idea of what's going to happen in the play. And as you guys read through this, two households both alike in dignity, so the Montagues and the Capulets are the two houses in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. So that gives you the setting. We're in Verona. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny. So there was an ancient grudge. That means these two houses hate each other. Where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. So there's going to be blood spilled. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. So they already tell you, from forth the fatal loins of these two foes. So these two houses each have a child. Star-crossed lovers, they fall in love. Star-crossed, you guys might have heard that phrase a couple different times, star-crossed lovers. What that means actually is doomed lovers. So people used to believe, and still do today, but in astrology, the signs, what your astrological sign is, all that stuff, people really believed in that. So back in the day, they thought the stars determined what happened in your life. So if one star crossed another star in such a way, it was a bad omen or it was a good omen, whatever that looked like. But that's where this phrase comes from, star crossed. Star crossed, if you guys look here, opposed by the stars, which were believed to control fate. So think doomed. A pair of doomed lovers take their life. So Shakespeare tells you before the play even gets started, he spoils it. He says these two lovers are they're going to take their life. They're going to kill themselves by the end of this play. Whose misadventure piteous overthrows, doth with their death bury their parents' strife. So their death is going to end the feud between these two houses, the Montagues and the Capulets. The fearful passage of their death-marked love and the continuance of their parents' rage. So the passage, how they get there, and the continuance of the parents' rage, the feud, which but their children's end not could remove, so the rage could not be removed except for the children dying, is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage, to the which if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So they break the fourth wall and address the audience here and basically say, and you're about to see a play about it. You might ask yourself, why in the world does Shakespeare spoil the entire story in the prologue? Nobody does that, right? But think about the people that were watching these plays. You had really rich people and really educated people who would be able to understand what was going on. And then you had the groundlings, the people that got in for a penny, that were probably drunk for most of the play. The whole reason they're here is for the sex and the blood, all right? They just want to be entertained in the most basic way possible. Shakespearean plays, a lot of the times, they used to try to make them as bloody and entertaining as possible. They would take sheep stomachs and fill them with fake blood and like stick them up under a shirt. So when somebody got stabbed in the play, there would be all this blood shooting out. So it was this huge, big spectacle, right? So it was more than just this high-ended thing. It was something that it was pretty lowbrow. It was pretty pulpy, which is something that we already talked about. Kind of we can relate to now. There's a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies like that, and everybody seems to enjoy them because they keep making them. So even back in Shakespeare's day, he would do a lot of stuff like that. Those people are who the prologue is for. The groundlings, the people that aren't going to understand necessarily what's going on. He's just trying to let them know this is the storyline. This is what's going to be happening. Here's a general idea of what's going to be going on so that maybe they can kind of follow it. That's the whole point, just to let people know what the story is. Okay, Act 1, we are going to jump right in here. So you start out, you've got Samson and Gregory. They have swords and bucklers. Bucklers are really small shields of the house of Capulet. So we're going to go over to our characters, go to the Capulet side. We got Samson and we got Gregory. So these two houses here, the Montagues and the Capulets, they are like major opposing powers in Verona. They're not royalty. We'll get to that in just a second, but they would have had a lot of money. So odds are they got their money probably from trading. Back in these days, it would have been they probably owned ships that took goods from one place to another. They got a lot of money that way. And what they end up doing is hiring or kind of bringing on these guys to live with them. They would live in these huge mansion-like houses. So when I say live with them, don't think like bedroom adjacent down the hallway. Think like they probably had their own little house to live in on the Capulets' land. But these guys, like it says, they're both armed, so they would be almost like the Capulets' own private army. Okay, so if anybody decides to attack the Capulets because they have a lot of money, or threaten them in any way, they have all these armed guys there that are ready to defend them. The Montagues have the same, as we'll see. So these two guys start out, like I said, they're just kind of wordplay. They're just joking back and forth. So none of this right here, anything they're saying, matters quite as much until we get, hang on, let me scroll up, until we get to this part right here. These guys, Samson and Gregory, up until now, are basically just talking about how much they hate the Montagues. Okay, that's the other family. Just like, man, I hate the Montagues. If the Montagues showed up right now, I'd really mess them up. I'd really show them what for. And then, because this is a play, you got to have conflict, move it forward. Enter two other serving men. So think mercenaries, Abram and Balthazar. So we're going to go back to our characters. We got the Montagues, Abram, and Balthazar. I always have a hard time spelling his name. All right, so we have these two sets of hired guys, one from the House of Montague, one from the House of Capulets. They both have swords. They're both angry with the other side. Samson right away pulls his sword out, says, "My naked weapon is out." Naked just means it's not in its sheath anymore. Gregory is trying to decide, are we going to fight these guys or are we going to stay here? So what Samson decides to do, he decides to bite his thumb at them. This is what it looks like. I'm going to show you really quick. Like that. All right. So it may look kind of strange to you, but back in the day, that was the same as flipping somebody off, as giving somebody the middle finger. Okay. So Samson decides, you know what? As they are, I will bite my thumb at them, which is a disgrace to them if they bear it. So if somebody flipped you off in the street, then you have a choice to make. Do you say, hey, you flipped me off. What's going on? Do you defend yourself or do you keep walking? And Samson says, if they keep going after I bite my thumb at them, it's a disgrace to them. All right. I'm really, really got him that time. Okay. Abram, right away, of the house of Montague, one of the other guys, goes, did you bite your thumb at us, sir? So right away, he's like, hey, I saw that. I'm not going to let you get away with it. Samson now, he asks Gregory, his buddy, is the law on our side if I say that I did bite my thumb at them? So if I said that I did flip them off. And Gregory says, no, it's not. We're going to be in a lot of trouble because we're starting this fight. And Samson says, no, I didn't bite my thumb at you, but I was just biting my thumb at the world. Okay, which is a lie. And Abram knows that. But then they start talking about whose master is better. So Montague or Capulet. Samson says, I serve as good a man as you. Abram says, no better. Well, sir. And then Benvolio comes in. Now, Benvolio, we're going to add him here. Benvolio, wait. Yep, he's in the right. Sorry, I thought I put him in the wrong column. Benvolio is a cousin of the Capulets. So he is also armed and everything like these two guys are, but he's going to be higher up. So he's going to be related to the House of Montague. So he's a cousin of Lord Montague. All right. So Benvolio walks up, and as soon as he does, Gregory and Samson decide, you know what, we're going to say Montague is better than Capulet and get this fight started because Benvolio's here. So now we outnumber them 3-2, right? So they say, yep, he's better. Montague is the better man. Capulet is worse, or Capulet's better. Montague is worse. I might have messed that up. Nope, that's right. Gregory, Samson, Abram. Hang on, let me double check. Of the house of Capulet. Yep. Okay, I apologize. I got kind of screwed up there. I'm good. Anyway, they start fighting, and right here, they talk to each other. Draw if you be men. Gregory, remember thy washing blow, slashing blow. And then you look down here and it says they fight. All right, so that's all started. These four guys are fighting each other. Benvolio, instead of joining in, he says, part fools, he calls them idiots for fighting. Put up your swords, you know not what you do. So put away your swords. Benvolio pulls out his sword and he starts trying to smack down the swords of these other guys to stop them from fighting because he doesn't want this. So this tells you a bit about Benvolio right here. He doesn't want to fight. He wants people to be peaceful, at least most of the time. And then we have Tybalt walk in. Tybalt is a Capulet. He is also a cousin, but a cousin of the Capulets. So he's at the same kind of level as Benvolio. He sees Benvolio with his sword out, beating down the swords of these guys, and he says, are you fighting? And he pulls out his sword. He says, turn thee, Benvolio, look upon thy death. So he shows him his sword and says, I'm going to kill you with this sword. Benvolio says, I'm just keeping the peace. Put up thy sword, put your sword away, or manage it to part these men with me. Either put your sword away or help me stop this fight. Tybalt says, what? Drawn and talk of peace? So you've got your sword out and you're talking about peace? I hate the word, so Tybalt hates peace, as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee, have at thee, coward. So Tybalt is the kind of guy that likes to get into fights. He hates peace. Any chance for a fight Tybalt gets, he's going to jump at it. So now you have three guys from the house of Montague fighting three guys from the house of Capulet. Then citizens come in. All right, this is taking place on a street out in the open. Citizens come in. They're either on Montague's side or Capulet's side, and then they start fighting with clubs. You guys know what a club is. And then partisans, which it says is a broad-bladed spear. All right, so citizens are all yelling down with the Capulets, down with the Montagues, depending on which side you're going to be on. General chaos. Then we have old Capulet in his gown and his wife, Lady Capulet. I'm going to add them to the characters. They're pretty easy to find. Capulet, they're just going to call him that for the whole place. So just know that means old man Capulet. He's the one in charge of the house. And then Lady Capulet, his wife, I could spell. He starts yelling. He says, "Give me my long sword, ho," which is not an insult to his wife. It's just kind of a general exclamation. Ho! He's excited. He's looking for his long sword. Lady Capulet says, "A crutch, a crutch. Why call you for a sword?" Basically, you old man, you should have a crutch, not a sword. You can barely even walk. Capulet insists on his sword. He says, "Old Montague has come," and flourishes, or as you can see over here, waves in the air his blade in spite of me. So Montague's on the other side, waving his sword around. Enter old Montague and his wife, Lady Montague. So we'll add them in here too. We're doing a lot of characters right off the bat. Whoops. Montague and Lady. They essentially have the same thing. Montague's going to go fight Capulet. He says, "Hold me not, let me go." So his wife is holding him back. She says, "Thou shalt not stir one foot to seek a foe." So basically, no, I'm not going to let you go fight this guy. You're too old. So these two guys are yelling at each other from across the street. And then we have Prince Aeschylus come in. So up until this point, imagine in your minds total chaos. Everybody's fighting on the street. Everything's crazy. The citizens have gotten involved. Everybody's got their swords out. These two old guys are yelling at each other with their wives holding them back from the other sides of the street. It's all crazy. That's when Prince Aeschylus comes in. So we're going to drop him in here, and he is in royalty. So Prince Aeschylus comes in, and in this whole long thing right here, he's mad. So these two houses have been fighting for a really long time, right? It says ancient grudge at the very beginning in the prologue. It's one of those things where nobody knows why they started fighting. It's just been going on forever, so they keep it going. They hate each other because they hate each other, basically. There's no reason. The prince is done with it. He is sick and tired. He says, "By thee, old Capulet and Montague have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets." So he says, 3 times you guys have started street fights and gotten everybody upset. 3 civil brawls bred of an airy word, so started from nothing just because you hate each other. He says, "I'm done with it. I'm sick and tired." And then he gives his decree. All right, I forgot to keep up on the notes here. So we've got at the very beginning, servants start fighting. Benvolio, whoops, tries to stop the fight. Tybalt keeps the fight going. Let's see here. Fight expands. We'll just put that. Basically, the citizens got involved. The Montague and Capulet showed up and were yelling at each other, waving their swords around. And then Prince Aeschylus shows up. All right, so the prince's decree. This is really, really, really important and is going to factor in later on in the play. So the prince says right here, after he's done saying, "You know what? You guys are insane. You cause these fights all the time. It's messing up my city." He says, "If you ever disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace." This is real. I can't stress how important this is. He says, "Anybody that ever starts a fight in these streets again, they will be executed for starting the fight or for fighting." Okay, so he's laying down the law. He says, "This has happened 3 times. You guys are ridiculous. I'm not going to put up with it anymore. The next person that starts a fight dies." Okay, so that's where we're at here. He's laying down the law, getting this put out right away. He says, "You, Capulet, shall go along with me." So we're going to talk, and Montague, come you this afternoon. So he's going to talk to the two houses separately. All right. And then they all leave. So everybody leaves except Montague, Lady Montague, and Benvolio, who, remember, would be like their nephew. Montague is wondering what was going on. Benvolio basically just says, "Oh, it was the servants. I tried to stop them, but then Tybalt got it started again." Lady Montague, hang on, I have something in my way here. I can't really read. There we go. Lady Montague then asks where Romeo is. So we're going to put that down here too. Prince's decree. Lady Montague asks about Romeo, who is her son. She wants to know where he's at. All right, Benvolio says, I saw him this morning. He was kind of walking around outside the town. He looked really depressed, so I don't know what's going on with him. Montague says, see if you can figure out what's going on with Romeo. Try to go find him and see what's going on with him because he's been really down in the dumps lately. And then he leaves. Or no, they're still there. And then Romeo comes in on the side, and Benvolio says, there he is. I'll go ask him what's wrong. All right. Montague says, thank you. They leave. So now it's just Benvolio and Romeo on the stage. Benvolio is his cousin. So he says, good morrow, cousin. Romeo, the way I want you guys to imagine Romeo now is really moody teenager. Okay, Romeo's about 16 years old right now, 16, 17, and he is just so moody. So everything he says, he is just, man, he's laying it on thick. So he says, good morrow, cousin. Romeo says, is the day so young? So he's just very dramatic. They go back and forth for a little while. He says, what sadness lengthened Romeo's hours? So why are you so sad? Romeo says, because I don't have something that I want. And Benvolio says, you're in love? And Romeo says, I am out of love, of her favor, where I am in love. All right, so Romeo, this is more of this wordplay stuff. They're going back and forth a little bit here. So Romeo talks about how his love, he's in love with somebody that does not love him back. And it's a little bit, let's see if I can find this line here. They're just going back and forth. Romeo is talking about love. He says it's a madness, a choking gall, preserving sweet. Romeo is talking about how sad love is. Benvolio is saying, who are you in love with, though? Who are you in love with? Who are you in love with? So we're going to say Romeo is in love. Well, I won't say that. Romeo is being dramatic. All right, so Romeo is being dramatic here. Oops, wrong tab. Benvolio then asks this important question, and this is where we get into the question of what does Romeo really want out of this situation? So Romeo is talking about, he says, for love's weak childish bow, she lives uncharmed, which not under the spell of, she will not stay the siege of loving terms, nor bid the encounter of assailing eyes, nor ope her lap to saint seducing gold, which is a reference to mythology. Oh, she is rich in beauty, only poor, that when she dies, with beauty dies her store. So again, very dramatic. Benvolio says, then she hath sworn that she will live chaste. And this is where we get into what Romeo is really after, because chaste, someone who lives chaste, means they don't want to have sex with anybody. All right? So really, Romeo is looking for one thing out of this person that he's in love with, and she does not want to give it to him. He says she has said that, curse it, because she's wasting her beauty. So Romeo is interested in the person that he's in love with for really one reason and one reason only. All right. And yeah, so he is very upset because she's not giving him what he wants. She's not giving him what he's looking for. Okay. So Benvolio says, oh, forget about her. There are plenty of people. Romeo says, oh, I can't do it. There's no way. So there we are. He basically says, nobody is as beautiful as this girl. I'm never going to find anyone as beautiful as this girl. So Romeo is being dramatic. Benvolio tells him to get over it. All right. And that is it for this video. It was really long. Typically, it won't be as long as this one was, but you just had to get some of that background too. So make sure you're keeping your own notes. Try to keep up on everything that's going on. And then whenever you guys get the chance, go ahead and get started on scene two.